please take their seats. We'll get started shortly. Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. My name is AJ Robinson. I am in my day job. I'm the president of a small nonprofit in downtown Atlanta called Central Atlanta Progress. And we work on the health and vitality of all kinds of different issues that our city of Atlanta faces. But here today, I'm here as the chairman of Georgia Forward. And I want to just as a way of introduction, tell you a little bit about Georgia Forward. And I believe it or not, I'm the only person that has served in this role for 12 years. They just can't get rid of me. But my day's coming soon. So I have participated in many of these programs in the past in this way, in terms of just welcoming everybody to this exciting day. And I know people have worked very hard. But just a minute, let me give you just a couple of comments about Georgia Forward. Our mission is to improve the state of Georgia by working as a catalyst to promote cross-sector statewide conversations and partnerships. So we started way back in 2010. We recognized the need to unite Georgia by bringing these groups together to find a common vision to move our state forward. Our work is in convening statewide thought leaders at our annual forums. This is how we began, and that led us to this idea of utilizing young talent like you guys in our state, not only to be exposed to, but also to tackle the challenges that face city leaders. In 2012, we hosted the first Young Game Changer program that was in Dublin, Georgia. And the recommendations from that group of young professionals served as a foundation for a very vibrant new downtown master plan in Dublin. We've now concluded with this 9 similar programs all over the state. So congratulations to all of you for being part of the program. Now, the work of Young Game Changers is most successful when we have strong community partners. And I want to really personally thank on behalf of myself and the board of Georgia Forward for Dalton for opening your doors to our program and just welcoming us into your community. I know because of COVID, it took us a long time to get here, but we made it, and really want to thank you on behalf of all of us who have made it all happen. I think you would be very impressed with what you hear today. And lastly, I do want to just give a shout out to my friends GMA and Larry, under the leadership of Larry Hansen, who you'll hear from in a minute. Georgia Forward existed for many years as an independent organization, but now we're under the fold and management of GMA, who do fantastic work, not only for the cities of Georgia, and all across Georgia. So it is now my pleasure to invite your mayor, Mayor Pennington, to the podium for a few words.
Thank you. I didn't think this day would ever get here. Some of you not from here, first time I ran for mayor in 2008, I took office during the financial collapse and the carpet industry collapse. This time I take office, we have a global pandemic. I've been told by several people I'm not allowed to run anymore. Anyway, I was first approached by this by Allison, GMA, whatever. I thought it fit really well with what we're trying to do in Dalton. Now, I'm sure y'all have noticed now we've got a lot of great things in this community. This has always been a very good community to live in. But where we've been struggling is how do we move from a very good community to live in to be an exceptional community. And I think we're well on our way now. With y'all's help, I think it's going to help us also. Thank you for the hard work you did. I know you were paid a lot of money to come up here and do this. We appreciate that. And thank y'all for being here.
I'm Andrew Parker, City Administrator. I want to thank, first of all, the Young Gamechangers for the time, energy, and dedication you brought to this process. I was involved in many of the preliminary meetings, and I know the time that you committed. I want to thank, too, the community leaders, the folks that made themselves available to this group to serve as local experts on where we are today. I'm very impressed with the breadth and the depth of the group, the experiences that you offer. And I was extremely impressed with some of the preliminary ideas that you presented, and I'm really excited to see the final product today. I think I told you when we were first together back in April, I hope when this program's completed that these will be 40 of the top ambassadors for Dalton, Georgia throughout the state and throughout the Southeast, and I hope you'll continue to be ambassadors for us as you move forward. So thank you for your hard work. At this time, I'll turn it over to Allison Coker.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Allison Coker, Executive Director of Believe Greater Dalton, the community strategic plan championed by the Greater Dalton Chamber. I just want to say that I think the starting point for this was probably with Phyllis Stevens when somebody reached out, and so we started the conversation like the mayor referenced back in 2019, like a year ago, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. This time it was early fall of 2019, and so we're just so thankful to finally see this come to fruition. And I'll thank all of you tonight, just the time and energy and all that you put into this. But I want to recognize our host committee. It was Andrew Parker, our County Commission Chair, Jevin Jensen, Zab Mendez, Viviana Ramirez. Y'all stand, please, because you were so instrumental in this. Let's see Zab here at Playbook. A lot of time and energy went into developing these challenge questions, and these folks were relied upon a lot. So I'm very grateful. I'm also very grateful to the Dalton Convention Center and the flexibility that they continue to show as we shifted our timeline time and time again. So thankful for that. And then all the sponsors, especially thankful for Shaw Industries and their donation of the printing for the final reports, the recommendations. That was a huge ask, and appreciative of Shaw for that. So again, just want to thank all the sponsors that have helped in Carpets of Dalton Event Center tonight, where we'll be celebrating all the hard work that these folks have done. So thank you for being here.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Sadie Crossek, and I work for the Georgia Municipal Association. I'm the Managing Director of Georgia Forward Placemaking. And you guys ready to see these recommendations? I know we are. There's been a lot of work that's gone into this. For the past 6 months, 45 of the brightest and best young leaders from all across the state of Georgia have been focused on Dalton. They've been listening to you, getting to know your community, really digging deep to address these challenge questions, which are not simple. They're complex issues, and they're learning how to work together, be creative, and come up with solutions that hopefully will give you some meaningful next steps to make this community amazing. We have loved being here. It's been wonderful getting to know this community and working with all of you. And again, just want to thank all of our sponsors who made this possible. So many people came together to make this program happen in this community, and we're very, very grateful. Let's give one more round of applause to all of our sponsors. I'd also like to recognize our team who came together to walk alongside all these amazing young game changers. I want to recognize our team in the back here from GMA, Cindy Idson, Renee Coakley, Karen Van Buren. So wave your hands. Thank you guys. All the logistics, all the training. Our leader, Georgia Municipal Association, you'll hear from later. Larry Hansen is here. Thank him for all of his support for this program. Thank you. Carrie Barnes from Georgia EMC. She's a Georgia Forward board member and one of our facilitators for this program. Thank you very much. And Pat Canella, who helped us all throughout the program, and she'll be facilitating the question and answer portion after each group goes. So you'll hear from her in a little bit. But with that, I want to turn it over to our young game changers and let them take it from here. All right, guys, you ready? Reclaiming the crown. Let's get started. Let's give them a warm welcome.
I see some of you looking nervous. You don't have to worry. There's no icebreakers to start this off. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew Thomas. I'm a senior process engineer at one of the many wonderful Shaw facilities that you'll see going up and down the highway. And I am part of Reclaiming the Crown. Sometimes in life, we take immense pleasure in reminiscing on the glory days of the past. The same can also be said for neighborhoods and communities. But to move forward into the future, we must adapt and embrace the changing environments we live in. As the redevelopment team, we were challenged with how to support neighborhood-based redevelopment in blighted or distressed areas in Dalton. After meeting with local officials, the scope of our challenge was narrowed to the Crown Mill District. To this end, we have named our presentation Reclaiming the Crown. To address our challenge, we have developed three main ideas. There we go. Three main ideas that we will share with you all today. The first being the construction of a new greenway that we have dubbed the Mill Line. This will connect downtown with the Crown Mill and to North Hague Mill Park. Next, city-led strategies that should be implemented to guide redevelopment with the goal of creating a cohesive neighborhood style. Last, but certainly not least, strategies that utilize nonprofits to target neighborhood-specific projects currently unconsidered by the private sector. We believe these three ideas bundled together will produce the desired outcome of revitalizing Crown Mill Village and the entire North Dalton area for current and future residents. Now, the team that I've been working with, you see all of their beautiful faces, but I would like for you to give them a round of applause as they stand to be recognized. Thank you so much. Now we will have our big idea, number one.
Good afternoon. I'm Kara Cooper. I'm with the Atlanta Beltline. I'm their Director of Economic Development, and it's been an honor learning about your community. So I would like to start by just sharing that Greenway projects have been providing major economic development and redevelopment opportunities across the country in communities just like Dalton. They've been attracting new residents, new jobs, new businesses, and private development, while also providing a better quality of life for the existing residents. Dalton has already had the vision about an incredible Greenway project, and we have taken the time over the past few months to think about how it could be further enhanced to increase redevelopment within the community. The recommendations we're providing today for the Dalton's Mill Line is focused on three categories: enhancing connectivity along the corridor at critical points with key job centers and really helping to drive redevelopment, enhancing the user experience to drive increased users from the community and the wider North Georgia, even Metro Atlanta region, and maintaining the legacy of the project and investment for decades to come, which is critical to the long-term impact the project can have for the community. So this is it. This is what we're looking at. We're here today to recommend that the current plans be expanded to really focus on a 2.7-mile mainline trail that connects key assets from downtown Dalton, the historic district that is thriving. We'll have the most amazing downtown asset. And connecting that to the Crown Mill Village development, Mount Rachel, Mill Creek, and finally Hag Mill Lake Park. We think it should also take into account critical spur trails that connect job centers like the hospital on Thornton Road and other assets to really drive the redevelopment opportunities here within the North Dalton area. We also really want to encourage, as the plan is being developed, that key user experience improvements are taken into account. We have outlined into our report incredible opportunities and examples from around the country. One includes thinking about a comprehensive security plan, really helping Daltonians feel comfortable and knowing that when they go out to enjoy the trail, it'll be safe, with call boxes, off-duty police officers being hired, and other measures to ensure people's safety along the trail. Another thing to increase walkability is to do a complete streets and walkability study to really check the sidewalk infrastructure and how communities are able to connect in with the investment. There's major crossings, as you know, across Thornton and also from the Greenway path to the Crown Mill Village development. So really just thinking about how can we get pedestrians on the trail and to the adjacent assets. And then we also want to encourage the city to look at a bike share program. There's public-private partnerships where bike share stations could be installed along the entire corridor from downtown to Hag Mill and really help get people moving along the 2.7 miles. The final user experience measure that we would like to encourage you to consider is wayfinding and placemaking. So helping people move along the trail with really detailed and interactive maps, as well as placemaking, having community-based artists to put in art, public art along the trail, as well as programming. So we have in our report really outlined how these activities and the implementation can be done over a period of time. Our short-term and immediate recommendations for the community is that you really focus on the downtown to Crown Mill Village portion of the trail. This could serve as a proof of concept for you as a community to show people what it could mean to connect downtown Dalton to Crown Mill Village. The users, all the activities that would drive, and then you're able to use that to attract more funding and more opportunities to finish out the rest of the corridor. So in the medium term, we would be continuing and suggesting that you continue the trail up to Hag Mill. There's also an incredible stormwater opportunity to turn that into a playground or playable art near the Crown Mill Village. And then long-term, really thinking about, we've made this investment. What can we do to ensure that this is something that serves our community for decades to come? So maybe an annual event that is a fundraiser for the trail, or there's additional revenue generation strategies. You know, our big utility city, you can put conduit under the trail and really use that to drive other revenue for the project. There's funding for the project that could be really achieved through a lot of different measures. And so what we've seen at the Atlanta Beltline is a combination of federal, state, and other public funding sources, philanthropic support, special taxing districts. We're going to talk a little bit more in our next section about tax allocation districts, which you've already done very successfully. It's been the main funding source for the Atlanta Beltline project. And then, as I mentioned, earned revenues. So this is budget estimates based on like projects around the region and nationally, but we would really recommend that as part of the short-term strategies, the cost of full implementation, not only the main line, but the spur trails, and then thinking ahead about the maintenance costs for the project be considered. And so as I mentioned, projects like this across the country are seeing incredible success. Just at the Atlanta Beltline, for every $1 of public investment, we've seen about $10 in private investment. So $800 million to $8 billion in private development is happening around what we've built so far. And so we just want to really encourage you to take a chance and to make this investment in yourselves and in your community. It's not only about private development, it's about new housing units, it's about attracting young talent to live in your community, and it's about new jobs and new businesses thriving so that existing residents and new residents can have an incredible life here in Dalton for decades to come.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Andrews. I'm the Deputy City Manager for the City of Villarica. And today I'll be talking to you about some strategies that the city could take a lead on. So first up, since the DDDA, the Dalton Downtown Development Authority, cannot extend as far as we're hoping to see redevelopment in the Crown Mill, North Dalton area, we are recommending that the city initiate an urban redevelopment plan. So first they would need to create an urban redevelopment agency, but this agency would be able to oversee redevelopment and issue redevelopment bonds. Once that's done, the city could initiate a state opportunity zone. This is a way to get Georgia tax incentives for new jobs for the employers in the area. You can see the map on the screen of the area that we're discussing here, but this would allow employers who create new jobs to get up to $3,500 per job. Next, we are proposing that the city help initiate a Crown Mill Historic District. So they would work with property owners, HPC, UPC, and the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission to come up with zoning and maybe some architectural requirements for that area. It would be mostly on the Chattanooga Avenue area, you can see on the map, but this would help preserve the culture and the architecture in that area. Additionally, the city of Dalton has a commercial overlay district, but not a residential overlay district. So we're recommending that we put a residential overlay district in place. This would be larger and less restrictive than a historic district, but it would allow for greater density. One of the fun things in the city section is the general store, which was donated to the city. I know it's a gym in that area. It was built in 1888. We were proposing that the city work to rehabilitate that. So to draw in a franchise such as a Clumpy's Ice Cream or something that might want to be in that area. But this is on the mill line that Kara just spoke about. So this would be a great stop along the way for folks who are walking or biking, or even folks who want to drive specifically to this place. And lastly is tax allocation district. So kudos to the city of Dalton for being proactive on TADs already. The city established redevelopment powers in 2014. They've initiated 5 TADs already, 1 dissolved, but there are 4 in place right now, just not in this area that we are discussing. So the red on the left is the redevelopment area, and zoomed in a little bit further in the second map is 363 acres in the North Dalton area that we recommend the city get a TAD, tax allocation district, before redevelopment, and I will tell you why. So let's talk about what a TAD is. So if you look at this chart on the bottom, it shows the base value of property tax. So right now, the city and the other taxing entities are getting property tax revenue from those businesses and other property owners in that area. Once a TAD is established, you see the first vertical line, and growth or redevelopment starts happening, then the value of those properties start to go up. And also property tax revenue goes up. So you see the growth in the dark green triangle. That growth in the tax revenue is what they also call the increment. And that growth in the money is what's used to work on infrastructure in a difficult to redevelop area. So that could be used like for the mill line that Kara was just talking about. And I'll get more specifics as far as what the dollars would be in a later slide. And then once the TAD expires, you see that second vertical line, the city and the other taxing entities receive that, that full property tax after redevelopment. So here are our action steps broken down short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Short-term is where most of these would happen. City staff could kind of take the lead on these things, creating the urban redevelopment agency and opportunity zone and the overlay districts. Next would be to focus on the TAD and redeveloping that general store. And lastly, continuing to use the TAD for other infrastructure needs in the area. Some ways to fund some of the things that I have presented here would be the city's general fund, projected TAD funds that I just showed you, or even SLOST funds. As far as budget goes, both the first and the last box here, the urban redevelopment agency, the overlay districts, those would mostly be staff time, which is not insignificant, but not as much as perhaps the rehabilitation of the Crown Mill General Store. We're estimating that at about $300,000. And just to touch on those TAD cash flows that I mentioned. So this chart is as far as if $25 million of redevelopment occurred in the area that we're talking about, the North Dalton Crown Mill area. Again, 25 million, that's key basically because that's what these numbers are based on. On the left, you see that if only the city participated and only the city gave up their increment, then about $22,000 a year could go towards these projects. However, if we built some synergy and we got the county and the school districts involved, then you're looking at much more, $181,000 per year. And if you do even more redevelopment than 25 million, then that number just continues to grow. With that, I'll turn it over to Mitchell.
Mitchell Snyder, and I live and work here in Dalton. I'm an attorney at the minor firm here in town. And I'm excited to present to you our third big idea, which is to utilize nonprofits, existing nonprofits in Dalton to address community-led redevelopment in this area, the Crown Mill area that we're talking about here. And that is strategic and intentional that we would utilize nonprofits as they offer unique solutions, strategies, and even funding, taking into consideration different considerations than maybe a city-led effort or a private developer's effort. Specifically, we have proposed 3 plans which involve a facade grant program in this area, the Crown Mill area, a community navigators program, and then site-specific redevelopment projects, which we'll talk about some today, specific sites in these areas that we've identified that nonprofits could go in and facilitate the redevelopment of. Again, this is intentional, and Dalton is well positioned and situated to implement this third big idea because of the existing nonprofit ecosystem here. Dalton has a long standing, over 20 years old, the Dalton Whitfield Community Development Corporation, the DWCDC. Mr. Reed Fincher, who you're about to hear from, is the executive director of that organization, who has a successful track record of addressing affordable housing issues in our community, which will also be a specific issue in this area in the Crown Mill Historic District. Additionally, Dalton has the Floor Capital Development Corporation, the FCDC, which is housed under the daughter of the Dalton Chamber of Commerce, which also is a relatively new organization, but it is also well situated and positioned to handle some of these proposed projects that we're proposing. There's other organizations around that are likewise well situated to facilitate these proposals. First, the facade grants. Again, this is not new to Dalton. The DDDA in downtown Dalton has a successful facade grant program, which is used to rehabilitate businesses in downtown Dalton. What our proposal is for a nonprofit entity to come in and to facilitate a similar program for residential structures in the Crown Mill area. The way this would work would be that they would raise funds, the nonprofit would, and some amount would match a private owner's funds to expend to improve these residential structures. It could be for painting, for brick cleaning, window repair in this specific area, which just improves the general appearance of the area and increases property values. Next, we propose the implementation of a community navigators program. And again, this is intentional, especially for this area where there are vulnerable populations of non-primary English speakers, of non-homeowners. We think it's important that this community, specifically the Crown Mill community where we are targeting our big ideas, to have a voice and to be a part of the discussions about what they want to happen and that their voice be heard. So this proposal involves hiring community navigators to go in and to hear from that community and to make sure that that community's voices are heard and that they're a part of this conversation. And as you've heard from, we're very excited about the mill line, the greenway. And so you'll see in green, you'll see the greenway. And these are the specific sites identified in our final report, some of which I'll talk about today, but this is where they align on the greenway. And these are the specific sites that we've targeted, although there's a number of others that you can probably think of, as well as the nonprofit organizations could also think of that we've identified. The first site is 501 North Hamilton, and this is a prime site for redevelopment for several reasons. One, it's at the corner of Hamilton and Tyler Streets, and it's a gateway to the North Dalton Commercial District. Its redevelopment would create an energy and excitement for that area. It's a large lot, it's underutilized, and it needs to be demolished to recognize its full potential. Our proposal would be for a multi-use structure to be built there. The FCDC could help with funding, and it could house residential and retail space on that site, which would be a catalyst for the entire area. Our next site-specific proposal is a Shaw 3-acre gravel parking lot on North Hamilton Street that is currently used by Shaw to house their tractor trailers when they're not in use. This proposal for this redevelopment would involve possibly Shaw donating this site to one of the nonprofit organizations and making redevelopment possible by using low-income tax credits, which otherwise a project like we're proposing might not be financially feasible. But if the FCDC could obtain low-income tax credits, then we could potentially build an apartment building which would provide housing in that area. We think this denser residential structure is important here as it would allow people to walk to their employers in the area, which would be crucial for this area. The final site-specific proposal that we have addressed or that I'll discuss today is 414 Chattanooga Avenue. It's the only industrial building on the street from traditional downtown to the Crown Mill. We've spoken with the current owner and they are open to the idea of redevelopment through the use of one of our nonprofits. And we propose that, that we use, again, some CHIP grants, which are more specifically discussed in the final report, but which can be obtained if you utilize or more easily obtained through the use of a nonprofit to build a quadplex on that and make it more congruent with the surrounding area. Here are the action steps for some of what I've talked about today, and you can see the short-term, medium, and long-term. And then also, again, funding sources. One of the benefits and the intentional reasons that we are proposing that nonprofits have a vital role in this is they are more easily able to obtain certain funding, which can make some of these projects a reality where they otherwise might not be. We have a budget for the two programs, and then each site-specific recommendation also has a budget as well that's more thoroughly fleshed out in the final report available on GMA's website and I think the city's website as well. Thank you.
Fincher. I'm the Executive Director of Dalton Whitfield Community Development Corporation. And I'm just going to close out our group's presentation by asking the question, what does success look like? If we implement these 3 ideas, you're going to see property values rise probably by a lot. It's not all about money though. We want to open up an avenue for all the great things happening downtown to expand north. We want to see people walking to and from downtown in the Crown Middle. We want a neighborhood where people of all ages and all income levels can live within walking distance of where they work, whether that's downtown or at one of the plants that abuts this neighborhood. And we want to preserve the historic core of the Crownville Village, which is a neighborhood integral to Dalton's history. And so if we work together to implement these 3 ideas, we can accomplish all those things, and look forward to working with you all to do that.
Talk about getting started off on a high note. Definitely some big ideas there today. My name is Kat Canella. I've been serving as the communications facilitator for our Gamechangers this class and several other classes as well. In case you weren't aware, we are live streaming this entire presentation on YouTube. It will be available for posterity's sake on the City of Dalton website as well as georgiaforward.org. So feel free to check out the final recommendations in full, as well as a copy of the slides and the recording there at a later time. But for now, I am here to help field any questions that you may have for this group about these first 3 big ideas. Please do not be shy. They are ready and willing and waiting for your input so they can clarify things for you. Yes, sir.
For the Greenway line, is there in the investigation, did they find what is too long as far as a pathway? Is 2.5 miles too long? Is 10 miles too long?
Okay.
Is 6 miles too long, or is
So
there anything in that?
The question is about the length of the proposed mill line. How did you guys come to that about 2.5-ish distance?
So I would say it really depends on your community, right? So at the.
Come on up. Come on up.
I think this is a decision that's really unique to the community, right? So in Atlanta, our belt line is going to be 22 miles and go through 45 neighborhoods because it's an old railroad line and we're just reconnecting it, and we want to, you're not going to go out and do 22 miles in one day, right? But what we see in like New York with their High Line, there's about 1.5 miles. Hickory, North Carolina is a great friend. These projects are in Albany, Georgia. They're all over the state. And again, it's just about what nodes of amenities are you wanting to connect. We went out as a team with people who live here. We walked it. We started downtown, which is just such an asset. We walked up to Crown Mill. We saw how close you are to Mount Rachel, and then the opportunity. I know things are already being looked at to go up to Hag Mill, even the North Park Drive. Like, how can you connect all these job centers, the hospital, into this route? And so we backed it out, and it was 2.7 miles. But as you begin to really get in the weeds, you may be a little longer, a little bit shorter. But I think it's very unique to the needs of the community.
But it can turn south as well and go.
Yes, and that's why the spur trails are great, because as you build it, I mean, we've got some incredible ideas coming with our next group. There might be other projects in the university, like how are you going to get those students over there? So all of those assets will be connected to that main line through spur trails.
Okay, somebody else?
Don't be shy.
Yes, sir.
Did you narrow the big ideas down to 3? Was there a 4th one that was closed?
Oh, yes. So for those of you who are not familiar with the process that these Gamechangers go through, each of these groups that divide and conquer the challenge questions, they start with 10 ideas each, and they get whittled down to 5, and then finally down to these 3 big ideas from each challenge question. So yes, there were many more that did not quite make the chopping block. All right, well, thank you so much. Oh, yes, sir.
one question for you. In your greenway analysis, did you put any thought into if you're looking to have like a multi-use path in conjunction with dedicated bike lanes on city streets, or were you able to find any sort of communities to prepare where they might have their ordinances written where bikes are allowed on multi-use paths?
Yeah, so we're definitely recommending a multi-use trail. I will say, if you only build a little bit at a time, there's a lot of pressure on the little bit that you built. We see that in Atlanta a lot. One of our busiest stretches, it's about 1.5 miles, and it's bikers and scooters and walkers and strollers. And so that's why, even on a regular sidewalk, you're gonna extend that sidewalk to larger specs so that it can handle the multi-uses that you would be doing on the trail. We've also had, because of so much activity, to add these bumper paths, kind of like the rubberized, probably another 1.5 feet to each side of our trail in our busiest areas, which is really the community is very appreciative of, because it just allows people to step off. That's when your wayfinding, your etiquette campaign, all of those things are really critical to ensure that people are being respectful of others on the trail and encouraging you to be looking for bikers and all those things. So and yeah, y'all have already been talking. We're here as a resource to you guys as y'all think through your plans, because we've had a lot of lessons learned and we're happy to share.
All right, anybody else for this group? Okay, and just as a reminder, these ideas are a jumping off point for your community. We hope that there are several ideas that you guys can latch into and expand to suit your needs. But with that, thank you so much. And let's welcome our next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Gibson. I come from Northeast Georgia, Franklin County specifically, and I represent Habersham County as their public information officer. I am so delighted to see how many people have turned out today to view these recommendations. When they say there are truly some of the best and the brightest in this room, it is true. I have listened more than I have spoken in a long time. There are some great folks here. So I'm excited to introduce you to Group 2's main ideas. So of the best and the brilliant in this room, I'm partial to my group, of course. We have a lot of Daltonians in my group. So if Group 2 wants to take a stand, I'm going to introduce our names. So we have Amanda Brown. We have April Moore. Of course, I'm Carolyn Gibson. We have Gabrielle Rogers. We have Gita Harding. We have Haskell Craver. We have John Miner. We have Luisa Sanchez. We have Marissa Kelly. We have Ross Berger. And we have Tyra Pearson, who's actually not here with us right now, but she was our fearless leader battling the hurricane. So I just want to thank my team and I thank my group members for their hard work. So our challenge question was really about the cultural diversity and inclusion here in Dalton. So it was a significant portion of our residents do not feel empowered or feel that their voices are being heard here. The city of Dalton is very diverse in this community. There is 50.8% of the population that is Hispanic or Latino. Unfortunately, the majority of the residents here don't feel welcome or included in the community. This is evident across all cultures, occupations, and socioeconomic levels. So our question was, how can we engage all sectors of the community to bring everyone to the table? Margaret J. Whitley once said, there is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. We believe that Dalton is a community that cares about its citizens, not just in portion, but as a whole. If that were not the case, this question would never have been posed. As we dug deeper, we realized that this was not just an issue that affected the Hispanic populations, but all people of the minority in this community. So as we dug deeper, we thought, in answering this question, how can we make sure that our ideas are affecting all of those groups of people? So these are our top 3 ideas. The first is Bridging the Gap, a community plan for engagement. The second is In Due Time, diversity, unity, and equity within Dalton. And the third is Educate for a Diverse Dalton, to grow together and share together. I now turn it over to Marissa Kelly, who's actually a Daltonian who's from here, to share some great insights.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marissa Kelly. I'm the president of the Dalton Whitfield NAACP. And our first idea is Bridging the Gap, a community plan for engagement. And so community engagement is a required aspect of leadership for social change. To remain proactive in this change, Team Dalton Unidos recommends the incorporation of a director of community, cultural engagement, and inclusion, a position which will be housed at the City of Dalton. This person will act as the main point of contact or liaison between school leaders, policymakers, and community organizations. They will manage and lead citywide engagement initiatives to make a great impact in Dalton. And our 5 areas of promise are advocating for building relationships, aiding and eliminating barriers, increasing civic and community engagement, increasing awareness of the plethora of resources and opportunities the city has to offer, and the 5th and final one is developing an engagement playbook. So community engagement is both a process and an outcome. It involves partnerships and coalitions that help mobilize resources and influence systems, change relationships among partners, and serve as a catalyst for effective programming. The director would serve as the lead, driving the process and outcome of programs such as voter registration and participation initiatives, community trainings, cultural heritage pop-up educational exhibits, grant programs, and literacy programming. So before the director is appointed, an advisory board will need to be created to help facilitate the process and planning. So we'll get feedback from community chat and choose or surveys, and that will enable government and public decision-making organizations to listen and in turn demonstrate the impact of community contribution. Because of this, a stronger relationship between public organizations and the community can be built. An example of this is in the city of Decatur. So where the city developed a strategic plan called the Better Together Initiative. Decatur took a year working on a community-wide visioning process that included conversations across differences and a community engagement outreach component designed to include all of its residents, especially those who felt like their voice wasn't being heard. As many as 800 citizens participated in one of the largest community engagement initiatives that had taken place in the city in years. This resulted in the development of the Better Together community plan. And once that plan was accepted by Decatur's commission, 15 members were selected to serve on a newly created advisory board, which even included a high school student. Now, one of those advisory members, Linda Harris, is the Chief of Civic Engagement, Education, and Communication for the City of Decatur. She was the project manager of the Better Together Initiative and is now a staff liaison to the Better Together Advisory Board. And so our budget consists of a 4-year plan before implementation of this very crucial position in order to lay the foundation of the role. And I'm not gonna go into all of that. Y'all can read it in our written report, okay? All right, you got all the numbers. Okay, so the impact of this position would have on this community is tremendous. From a high level perspective, our diverse community will continue to foster its sense of Dalton pride. We will begin to see our population living, working, and playing right here in Dalton. The heritage of having a multi-ethnic community will expand. Economic growth will blossom, diversity amongst local organizations will bud, and the civic and community engagement opportunities will be established and promoted. Thank you all for your time, and I'm gonna turn it over to Gabrielle Rogers.
Good afternoon to the city of Dalton. I'm Gabrielle Rogers, and I serve as the Director of Marketing for Growing Leaders, and I hail from DeKalb County. I am elated today to talk about our second big idea. In due time, me and the clicker are not friends today, but it is okay. So in due time, diversity, unity, and equity. Our goal was to tell the stories of the city of Dalton through art, diversity, and culture, a partnership with business leaders, community advocates, schools, and local artists. So we are proposing a 12-month program where Believe Greater Dalton will hire a consultant that specializes in facilitating DEI trainings that are fierce, open, and productive conversations. A minimum of 12 culturally and socioeconomically diverse community members will be chosen to participate in this program. We are recommending a selection committee led by the Unity Initiative of Believe Greater Dalton, and including the hired consultant that will include an open house, an interview, and briefly a nomination process. The feature group of 12 diverse community members and business leaders will meet monthly for 12 months to have themed discussions and share a meal. In partnership with the Creative Arts Guild, an experienced artist in residence will be hired to work and participate with a cohort as a member of the group, and will take the stories shared during the community meetings and create small vignettes that will be acted out before each month's discussion. At the end of those 12 months, the playwright will compile all stories from the cohort and create a one-act play storytelling for social change that will open up for the community at large, in addition to being marketed as training and discussions starting businesses and groups. This could very well be our city of Dalton's very own swamp grading, which would be the lens to bring our community together. Our proposed timeline is the near term, and we're proposing that in near term, that Believe Greater Dalton and the Unity Committee selects and hires a consultant. The Creative Arts Guild will help to advise a selection process for playwright in residence. In the midterm, Believe Greater Dalton will work with community needs and assessment created by the Educate for More Diverse Dalton group to gain feedback from the community on issues, programs, and educational needs to discuss at the dinners. And finally, our long-term recommendation is that final selections for the first class and the members in due time be completed and announced, and the first monthly dinner to be held. You see an overview of our budget, and we are proposing a total of $27,000 that will cover the dinners, outside consultants, sponsorships for travel, and materials for our vignettes. Our partnerships will include CLELA, the Latin American Association, Believe Greater Dalton, Chamber of Commerce, the City of Dalton, Creative Arts Guild, and local businesses. So we hope that the community of Dalton will take our idea into consideration as you continue to tell the amazing stories of our neighbors and our friends. Thank you. And I will now turn it over to Captain April Moore.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is April Moore, and I am a captain with the Fulton County Sheriff's Office in Fulton County, Georgia. Make sure I know how to use the clicker, right? Okay, all right, great. I would like to start with a quote by former U.S. Army General Eric Shinhetseki. If you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. You had an opportunity to hear from other team members about bridging the gap through cultural inclusion and engagement and building community through the arts. I stand before you here today to talk about building community through education. Our team is recommending an educational campaign that will allow greater advocacy in the Hispanic and Latino community. We have named it Educate for a Diverse Dalton. It is our belief that information connects people, and when people are connected, there's no limit to the barriers they can break down. There's a large Hispanic community in Dalton. There's a large Hispanic community in Dalton, a population that has been and continues to be crucial to the success of the carpet industry. But unfortunately, this same community does not have a strong connection with the greater Dalton community. When our team arrived in April this year, we met with Hispanic and community leaders that were able to give us insight on concerns about underrepresentation in their community, specifically regarding engagement in cultural activities, local government, as well as civic organizations. What we have discovered in our research is that these things that drive those concerns are constantly evolving and can be impacted by a single incident. The Believe Greater Dalton Strategic Plan, being championed by the Greater Dalton Chamber of Commerce, is a concept that can instill community pride, but there are some things we believe that should be in place to ensure that all Daltonians feel the same sense of pride without hesitation. How can this be done, you may ask? By establishing a steering committee comprised of leaders within the Hispanic and Latino community, which should also include a diverse age range. This is important because they will have a finger on the pulse of the community and remain nimble enough to adjust priorities based on social climate. The committee's primary focus will be to increase engagement and educate members of the Hispanic and Latino community on city-led initiatives and other resources in the greater Dalton community and identify challenges that need to be addressed. It should also be a part of the Believe Greater Dalton strategic plan. In the short term, we believe it is important for volunteers and staff from Believe Greater Dalton, the city of Dalton, and the greater Dalton community assist with supporting the community's self-defined initiatives, documenting the activities that are occurring, establishing partnerships with, making sure my glasses are working, establishing partnerships with community organizations, and of course, continuing to recruit community members to support the committee. Additionally, they will gather data that can be used in a targeted campaign to provide information that allows members of the Hispanic and Latino community to be educated about efforts to build bridges with their community. There will also need to be a leadership structure, of course, and once it's developed, it should include a chairperson, vice chair, and subcommittees. The steering committee should meet regularly, starting on a monthly basis, and that, of course, that cadence could change as necessary to fit the needs of the group and their initiatives. In the midterm, the needs of the Hispanic and Latino community need to be identified and categorized. The needs should be considered, are perceived, expressed, absolute, and relative. There must be policy recommendations that support the Hispanic and Latino community. A review of the system is also important because if the system is broken, no matter the input, the outputs will always be distorted. The status quo cannot be the standard. Addressing environmental change is also probably the most complex because it involves the changing physical, social, and economic factors in the community. We all know this is an ever-evolving process. Long-term, taking everything learned during the midterm outreach, materials will need to be developed to elevate a compelling message. There must also be accessible educational materials, and accessibility should remove physical, situational, and socioeconomic restrictions. Here you can see we have a budget of $29,000 for the initial marketing plan to educate a diverse Dalton. And that includes, of course, television, radio, publication, mailings, and everything else that you see on the screen. Now that you've heard our 3 ideas, what does success look like? Success is a more civically engaged Hispanic and Latino community in the public and private sector. All Daltonians knowing that their voices are valued and having Hispanic Latino cultural representation in city-led community initiatives. The best part about our 3 ideas, if a cultural affairs director is appointed, they can implement and oversee the seamless execution of In Due Time and the steering committee. And in closing, when I say Dalton, you say united. Dalton, united. When I say Dalton, you say unidos. Dalton, unidos. Dalton, united. Oh, I did. I messed it up. We'll do it again. Dalton, united. Dalton, unidos. All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dalton, United Dalton Unidos, and as you so put, it takes all of us to be able to build a community that we're all proud to live in. So do we have any questions for this group? Yes, ma'am.
For the first figure out of the Bridging the Gap, you mentioned the initiative, indicator, gets better together. Are there any other cities or communities that have similar programs to look at? Maybe I would assume there's not a difference between Decatur and a community like ours. So any other examples of this?
So the question is, are there any other example communities beyond Decatur that might be used to support the initiative in Idea One?
So the beautiful thing about this idea, and this was brought forth by Tara, who is not here with us. She's our HR, she was an HR director, and she had to stay back for the hurricane. But the great thing about this idea is there were no other small communities that seem to be asking these proactive questions to bring forward these issues to have something like this created. So in our research, there really was no other mold besides something in a bigger community. So Dalton bringing this question as one of the foremost questions shows the initiative that this is important enough in this community to maybe go ahead and make that mold, because it's not in other small communities.
All right, thank you. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
Just curious about the systems change component, because that could be everything from affordable housing to transportation to food insecurity to hospital access, healthcare access, et cetera. So with the budget that you have, you're probably just making recommendations for systems change as they emerge from the committee.
We'll put that to the group. It's asking about the budget proposed for the system change.
Yes, so our goal specifically for that main idea was to educate people about things that, or make recommendations. So that's not, of course, budget to be able to execute those ideas, but definitely a system change requires a lot of those things, from transportation, because that was one of the things that we saw was a bit of an issue within the community as well. And you're looking at housing affordability, infrastructure. There are a lot of things, local government, public policy. There are a lot of things that go along with that. But that was specifically to educate people about things, and then for the steering committee, for them to make recommendations about things that they see that need to be changed. My pleasure.
What else? All questions are good questions. No, sorry. All right, well, with that, thank you, Dalton United. Dalton Believers.
That concludes our presentation.
Pardon the brief delay, technical difficulty in unlocking my iPad. Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this important presentation. I'm Natalie Crawford. I'm the Executive Director of Georgia First. We're a 501c4 based in Flowery Branch, and I'm representing the Dalton Believers Group. The challenge raised to our group is the concern that 70% of Dalton Whitfield County's K-12 students are considered economically disadvantaged. We were asked how the community can better support this population to improve educational outcomes and give them the tools they need to succeed. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of my young game changer peers. And I won't take time to read off every name of the education committee, but I do want to say that I celebrate each of you. I thank you for your dedication. And if you'll all stand to be recognized. According to the National Assessment of Adult Literacy, sponsored by the National Center for Education Statistics, the student who is not reading proficiently by the end of 4th grade has only a 22% chance of catching up by the time he or she graduates high school. 84% of all juveniles who interface the juvenile court system are functionally low literate. We know that these circumstances are often due to a lack of access to the appropriate resources. So while the challenge posed to us demands attention to a specific target demographic, economically disadvantaged students, we understand that a rising tide lifts all ships. We utilized the whole child framework to inform the strategy of implementation of our ideas. The 5 foundational pillars of our work are based on the premise that healthy families have access to resources, information, and educational opportunities regarding medical care and healthy lifestyle practices. Number 2, safe families are provided resources to assist in creating, increasing, and maintaining the physical and emotional safety of all environments in which they're engaged. Number 3, engaged families are actively engaged in the community, and a sense of belonging and inclusion is intentionally fostered. Supported families have access to targeted support mediated and provided by qualified caring organizations and community members. And number 5, challenged families are provided with appropriate, accessible, needs-based learning opportunities that provide them with the tools necessary for success in college or further study and for employment and participation in a global environment. At the outset of this program, we were charged to think big and present big ideas. And we know all too well that these big ideas can be challenging to implement. That said, we know that Dalton Whitfield County, in the immortal words of Whitney Houston, believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. In all seriousness, allow me to give you a high-level overview of our ideas to address a truly important and pressing issue. Workforce development, initiatives that are driven by a workforce development director. This is to strengthen the relationship between existing industry and the K-12 education system, promote local career opportunities, and enhance career readiness activities that are geared towards a targeted student population through robust strategic workforce development initiatives that are driven by a workforce development director. Neighborhood opportunity centers build on the already established work of the Dalton Neighborhood Initiative, a collaborative community project that has seen wide-ranging support and investment from all sectors of the local economy. We want to expand on this model across the entire county and to establish additional strategically located neighborhood opportunity centers throughout Dalton and Whitfield, which create a one-stop shop for access to programming, resources, and support for students. And lastly, transportation. To address a prominent barrier that's impacting students' ability to engage much needed resources. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Patrick Ledford to provide a more in-depth description of our workforce development program.
Good afternoon. Ooh. Pretend it's a chamber function. Good afternoon. All right, now we're in business. My name is Patrick Ledford, and my day job, I'm the economic development liaison for the Georgia Department of Education, and I hail from also Habersham County in Northeast Georgia. I am going to discuss briefly the workforce development initiative called Elevate Greater Dalton. However, all of you have been inundated with such wonderful information and ideas. I will say to you the same thing the legendary actress Elizabeth Taylor told her 8th husband on their honeymoon. Don't worry, I won't keep you long. Perfect segue to workforce development. Elevate Greater Dalton is a robust and holistic comprehensive workforce development initiative that is driven by a workforce development director position This position has existed in the past in this community, and we realized within our work here that we needed, this community needed that tip of the spear for workforce development back into the community. A full description of what would be under that position's purviews is of course outlined in the final report, which you've all been encouraged to read, and we hope all of you do so, all 50 pages. The position would oversee the three pillars outlined in this initiative, and then also ideally housed out of the chamber. We feel like there's such strong stakeholder engagement within this community that the initiatives that I'm going to briefly highlight are there's already such strong support to possibly make them happen. The three pillars of this initiative are Project Motion, which is a youth committee community leadership program, Connect Greater Dalton, which is an educator externship program, and Northwest Georgia Ready, which is a career readiness and community exposure digital campaign. Project Motion, moving students from provision to promise. Ideally, this is designed for sophomores and juniors. It would be free and accessible to all students in both public school, both in Dalton Public Schools and Whitfield County. It is a year-long program made up of 5 sessions. We want it to be, it's designed to be community-driven and interactive and engaging for the students, exposing them to not only business and industry, but community resources, to local government, to leadership training and skills, really making it robust and providing them a global experience of their community. Connect Greater Dalton, connecting community, industry, and education. For those of you that are familiar with educator externships programs, this would be a week-long experience open to educators, counselors, and administration from both school districts. The future talent pipeline of your community are your students. Your educators are workforce developers because throughout the school year, they're spending a large part of the day and throughout the week with students. So it's imperative you engage the students, you need to engage the educators as well. And that's what this experience is designed for, that the week-long experience would enable the participating educators to engage with key local stakeholders, learn about community resources and local government, and also business and industry. Northwest Georgia Ready. This is a career readiness and community exposure digital campaign targeted for high school students, utilizing multiple platforms, trying to engage students where they're at, highlighting student success stories, bringing awareness about community events and resources, and of course, connecting more students to business and industry and local career opportunities. This is a brief breakdown of the budget. Of course, the largest cost being associated with a salary for the workforce development presenter. We also have estimates for the program initiatives that I highlighted. But once again, just capitalizing on the strong stakeholder engagement community, it would be relatively easy to find a lot of donations, especially of time and space or even meals, as these programs were developed and flourished, to offset those costs for the community and the agencies being charged with the responsibility of it. Here's a brief short-term, medium-term, and long-term outline of the program. Of course, identifying that workforce development director and being able to implement these programs and start bringing the right stakeholders together and working with the school systems, of course, would kickstart a lot of the progress here. But we do feel like that regardless if a student is a Puma or a Catamount or a Colt or a Raider or a Phoenix or a Bruin, we feel like our programs outlined in the Elevate Greater Dalton plan would promote and give all students a platform to be successful, both academically and professionally. I appreciate your time. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Anna Hart.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Hart, and I serve as the Director of EPP Assessment and Teacher Leadership Program Coordinator at Columbus State University, but I'm also a proud lifelong resident of Dalton. And yes, I know Columbus and Dalton are far apart. No, I don't go every day, but that's how much I love our community and how much I want to be here. We're going to fight with the clicker as well. So as we stated previously, the Dalton Believers Group, we were charged with proposing ideas for how our Dalton-Whitfield community can better serve and support the 70% of our students considered economically disadvantaged. Author Jamie Wolmer notes in his book, Schools Cannot Do It Alone, that to improve educational outcomes for students, we must also address the needs and cultures of the greater communities in which our schools are situated. This is a sentiment shared by our Dalton Believers group, and thankfully it's one that's already being acted on here in Dalton. Our team's second big idea builds on the work of the Dalton Neighborhood Initiative, or DNI, which is a partnership among several community organizations that have come together to establish neighborhood resource centers. The overarching goal of the DNI is to provide families and their children with services and resources that increase their capacity for success in school and in life. And at present, 2 centers exist. One is located in the large public housing neighborhood just behind Rome School, and the other is located in the large public housing neighborhood on Beachland Place in the Park Creek School District. A wide range of programming for children and their families has been offered at these centers, and that's where these lovely images came from, including summer camps, informational sessions about health and medical care, and assistance in developing young children's basic literacy and numeracy skills. Both of the centers established by the DNI are located in communities in the Dalton Public Schools District. Funding for these centers has been sort of pieced together over time from several different sources, many of which have been made available through federal and state funds awarded specifically to Dalton Public Schools. If the greater Dalton-Whitfield community is to truly address the issues faced by the 70+% of our students that are identified as economically disadvantaged, our team believes that opportunities such as those created by the work of the DNI must be made available to all residents, not just those who happen to live in one school zone. So our vision is to continue the work of the Dalton Neighborhood Initiative by building on their already successful model in a meaningful and sustainable way, so that children of all ages and their families throughout Dalton and Whitfield County have access to the many resources and programs already available here in our community. We propose to accomplish this by establishing a Neighborhood Opportunity Center, or NOC, in close proximity to each elementary school neighborhood in Dalton Public and Whitfield County School Districts. And we've mapped those here for you so you can see exactly where those are located. Based on the needs of each unique neighborhood, some NOCs may be physical centers, while others may be smaller collections of resources or materials housed within the schools or within another appropriate central location at the discretion of the local community members. The offerings made available by each NOC will also be collaboratively selected and designed by its stakeholders and will be organized around the initiative's 5 foundational pillars that Natalie described earlier: healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. Our initial suggestions for center programming include things such as parenting classes, helping families gain access to appropriate medical care, employment fairs or other outreach events from our local employers, assistance with the steps required for gaining admission to college, such as filling out the FAFSA or completing admissions applications, and even after-school tutoring for our P-12 students. We estimate a need of approximately $385,400 to fund the first 5 years of the NOC initiative. Our team has several ideas for securing these funds. One of the most exciting sources that we've discovered is a research practice partnership grant from the Spencer Foundation that would provide up to $400,000 in funding across a 3-year period. Intent to apply submissions for this year's annual funding cycle are open now and remain open until November 9th, no pressure. Several local members of our team are qualified, willing, and committed to assist with the procurement of these funds.
should our local community decide to act on this initiative now. Our group would like to see the administrative responsibility for this initiative taken on by an organization affiliated with both Dalton Public and Whitfield County Schools equally, so that this work will have a broader opportunity for bipartisan support and buy-in. And based on our discussions with local stakeholders, we believe the chamber is the most appropriate local entity to officially house this initiative. Further discussion around housing this initiative in the chamber, including our proposal for a new full-time NOC program director position, as well as a more thorough plan for funding this program, is available in our final report that you can find online. So to sum up this big idea, our team certainly doesn't believe that learning happens in a vacuum. So if we truly want to serve and support our economically disadvantaged students, we believe we should also then serve and support their families. The work of creating neighborhood centers has already begun here in Dalton, and our team would be honored to help expand that work to all corners of our community. Thank you all very much, and now I'll pass it to my colleague, Rosa.
Hello, my name is Rosa. I am the Director of Site Operations at the Junior Achievement Discovery Center of Greater Dalton, and I have lived in Dalton for over 20 years now. So let me repeat this question one more time. In 2019, 70% of Dalton Whitfield County's K-12 students were considered economically disadvantaged. How can the community better support the student population to improve educational outcomes and give them the tools they need to succeed? It should come as no surprise that children that grow up in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods have a significantly reduced chance of graduating compared to their peers. Theoretically, every public school student receives the same education and resources as their peers. So this raises the question, where is this discrepancy coming from? One can conclude that the problem lies outside of the classroom. To best address the needs of our students, we must address the child as a whole, and beyond that, the family as a whole. A student must be healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged to be successful. But shouldn't their families as well? The greater Dalton community has a number of resources available to our students and their families, but they are limited by a lack of transportation. Research has shown the importance that participating in after-school activities has on students' attendance, educational outcomes, and social emotional learning. Our vision is to systematically enhance and build on Whitfield County's current transit options and infrastructure, laying the groundwork for a future in which no child or their family has to worry about having reliable access to Greater Dalton's vibrant array of community activities and support systems you see listed. Dalton currently has a transportation system. We're only seeking to expand what is already in place. Expanding the current transportation service would better serve the community students and could bridge the gap between at-risk youth. This would open opportunities proven to increase graduation rates and support success. Our current options in Dalton are rideshare, which would be your Uber and Lyft, but if you check your app, those are probably limited right now. We also have taxis that run on a meter, and the price can vary based on distance traveled. There's also the Dalton Trolley that runs Friday through Saturday from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m., but that runs from our local hotels to the downtown. Dalton's public transit system is the Whitfield County Transit System. The only issues with it currently are that you must call 48 hours in advance to schedule your ride. Because it is point to point, multiple passengers with multiple destinations are serviced per deployment. So your time on the bus can vary. Currently, not all of the buses are in use. There's a lack of drivers, but most importantly, there's a lack of riders and usage. After meeting with Greater Dalton's Metropolitan Planning Organization Coordinator and the head of Whitfield County Transit Service, there was a lot of discussion concerning the decline in usage after COVID. To encourage community usage, we must reach a larger audience by marketing. This is our short-term solution. We suggest social media pages promoting the usage of the public transportation, Currently, there is not a page just for the transportation. It is used, the same page, social media page is used by the Whitfield County government. We also suggest using our local newspapers such as the Daily Citizen and La Voz. There is also multilingual messaging, as you can see. So we can put that out on more of our social media outlets like Dígame News as well. We also, we are also suggesting the use of promoting free passes to the community. We're estimating about this would cost about $8,000 to $10,000 to get some free passes and hand them out to the community so they're aware of the usage and they're encouraged to use those. This cost could be subsidized by local industries whose employees could benefit from the service. Our medium-term solution is a feasibility study. The last one was done in 2012. And the purpose of this is to assist with planning for a larger scale transit service to maintain pace with the population growth. Historically, the study is broad in scope and the cost is shared with the state and federal funds, covering 80% of the cost, while Whitfield County contributed to the other 20%. We see this as an investment to better serve Dalton and Whitfield County economically, our Whitfield County's economically disadvantaged student population and their families. Our long-term solution is based on the results of the feasibility study and would be an investment in a fixed route with multiple buses running multiple routes a day. This would increase the usage. Feasibility study could also help us establish where we could put a centralized hub or station for these buses. And overall, it would be an investment in our community. Defining success. A measure where every family with children in Dalton Whitfield has the same access to the vibrant resources and opportunities that our community has to offer. Thank you.
All right. What questions do you have for this group? Yes, sir.
It's kind of a two-pronged question. Frankly, I was shocked personally at the 70% number. I don't know if I'm the only one in the room that was like that, but I was. I'd like to know where the definition of economically disadvantaged came from. And then secondly, how do we, Dalton, Whitfield, stack up amongst other similarly situated communities? What percentile, quartile are we with economically disadvantaged students?
Okay, so the question is, how do we define economically disadvantaged? And then how do we compare against our peers in terms of the population that qualifies?
Okay, well, I just want to say that, so I'm Carrie Barnes, I'm with Georgia EMC, and I was helping the local community to determine what the challenge questions were. So I do know that statistic, I believe, came from the school system. Can somebody local maybe confirm or deny that?
My understanding
is that it's the FRL number, free and reduced lunch number, and so is that right? So, right, for the entire community. So it's not relevant to one system or the other. My understanding is that it's just
the Dalton Public School System is 72%.
Right. In 2019, Dr. Scott said that it was for DPS was 70G. So that's both together. How we compare our local education from our local school systems. I personally don't have those data at the front of my mind right now. We could find out certainly, but I don't know exactly how it's done. Okay, she says by comparison, Habersham County has a 30% FRL rate, so there's at least one comparison. Yes, free and reduced lunch is based on income. Yeah, family income.
Okay. Who else? It is staggering that 70% of the students qualify.
Two centers that we have today, what's the percent usage? You know that number as far as percent usage for those two centers that we have.
Do we know the usage of the two neighborhood opportunity centers that currently exist?
We're just gonna have the audience ask the audience. Carolyn Gibson is with us today, and she works for Dalton Public Schools, and she's been deeply involved in this work. So Carolyn, you tell us.
I will leave mine.
Give that girl a mic. Thank you, Carolyn.
Currently, we are using the Rome Resource Center on a daily basis. We have classes for parents and young children. We also have classes for literacy and computer classes for our adults. We are starting a great partnership with Hamilton Medical where we are having also health classes, and we've interviewed the community to see what they are interested in as far as over-the-counter drugs, safety, first aid, those kind of things. We also use a 1 day a week for our special education community classes for children who are 3 and 4 who need special education in the community.
So it sounds like the centers are utilized daily.
Yes.
And in putting together our plan, we spoke with representatives from both school systems. So for example, we spoke with Matt Evans, who's the chairman of the DPS school board. We spoke with Superintendent Uden from Whitfield County and some other individuals from Whitfield County. And that's where the idea came from, that some centers may be physical locations and others may just be resources housed within an existing structure based on the needs of those specific communities. That's for that.
Okay. What else? Yes, sir.
I didn't hear any mention of the public library. It's a facility that both the city and county give considerable resources to, and probably it's underutilized in many ways. I just wondered if that was maybe a resource that went into your analysis.
He's commenting that the public libraries here in the area, were they a resource that was accounted for?
We did consider that. We had some conversations with the library system as well. To Anna's earlier comment, in terms of some may be physical centers, physical locations, some may be an existing facility. That we use that term as an umbrella, thinking that perhaps the library would be one of the locations utilized. But that really needs to be determined by the community. And so we didn't put it specifically to the library, but absolutely that was part of the consideration.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
So the 2 centers we have now are being utilized in Dalton Public School. There is nothing in the county at this point. It was in Dalton Public Schools initiative, that's where I work.
So the answer is yes. The 2 current neighborhood centers are Dalton Public County initiative.
Yes, but I'm just asking, so we know that there's nothing similar to what they're doing in Dalton Public Schools with the Whitfield County school system as far as the neighborhood initiative center.
It's in the full report. We kind of, I don't remember how detailed we went honestly, but I know we suggested to start with maybe Valley Point Elementary School, which is a county school. So lots of our conversation today has talked about revitalization and development of North Dalton, but we don't want to forget about the south end of the county either. And so we suggested for that reason specifically that maybe we start with one of the schools in the south end of Whitfield County that is more, has more economically disadvantaged students. And also we thought about which schools had higher ESOL populations as well, so that these targeted resources would get the most bang for our buck, basically, to start with. So like I said, in the full report, I think we laid out maybe the first 2 or 3, I don't remember. I know we did specifically state Valley Point might be a good place to start though.
Thank you.
Okay, great questions. All righty, thank you so much for believing in Dalton. Dalton believers.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chelsea Tucker. I am with Georgia Power's Community and Economic Development Team. I am here from City of Decatur, Georgia. So our group's topic was really around how do we leverage all of the amazing assets that I know many of you in this room already know that Dalton has to attract more visitors, day trippers, new residents, as well as new businesses. And so we really had the advantage on our team, I feel like personally, of having good representation from across the state. So that brings new ideas of things that worked or didn't work in other communities, as well as having all of our local Daltonians here to tell us what's already been tried in the community and areas we should focus on. And so if I could just have my team stand. Unfortunately, our coastal friends were unable to join us today due to the hurricane. But and so our big three ideas, number one is writing your own chapter of the Dalton story. So this is really around, given the broad nature of our topic, kind of hitting every area of Dalton, is to come up with a unified story across, no matter if you're marketing to just visitors, if that's your organization's goal, or if your organization's goal is to bring business into Dalton. So kind of getting all of those different organizations across the city and county together to kind of come up with that big umbrella story that no matter who your audience is, you have one goal. And our second idea, Destination Downtown, as you can guess, is focused more in the downtown area. So this is around like your multicultural restaurants that you have, creating a taco trail there, utilizing the city's train car, as well as redeveloping the recently demolished, I guess you might say, the parking deck at Burr Park. So a redevelopment there. And number three is Peacock Alley Complex. So this is really to take advantage of y'all's new moniker that New York Times gave y'all of Soccertown USA, and creating a multi-use sports-oriented complex. And we specifically chose sports-oriented, not soccer, because y'all do have so much sports tourism here in Dalton to take advantage of that those fields could really be utilized for other sports as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Kayla to go through Dalton's story.
Good afternoon. My name is Kayla Cooper, and I am the Senior Staff Attorney for the Augusta Utilities Department in Augusta, Georgia. And as an attorney, I want to assist you all in your questions, because as an attorney, you are trained to never ask a question you don't know the answer to, or ask a question you don't know the answer to. So on my slide, I have the questions for you guys, and I will provide the answers. So our big idea number one is writing your own chapter of the Dalton story. Who is the city of Dalton? What we discovered in our research is that it really depends on who you ask. So what we are proposing is a community identity initiative. The purpose is to bridge the perceived gaps of various Dalton entities' branding efforts. How? We're going to unify the various stakeholders to create a committee representative of proud Dalton and Whitfield County champions. We're going to participate in intentional storytelling and improve wayfinding. Why, are you asking? Well, currently it appears that the key stakeholders and entities focus primarily on their individualized vision and missions. I know you may be asking, but what's wrong with that? The answer, nothing, except that it is not optimal for collaboration and expressing the Dalton story. What is this? It's the shift for all Daltonians to create and maintain individual chapters in a cohesive book called The Dalton Story. And for who? This initiative would encompass three primary audiences, and that would be new and current residents, new businesses, and visitors. The opportunity exists for every entity to write their own individualized chapter of the Dalton story, keeping in mind that it is all an important part of the same book. This initiative would be both in a literal sense and a figurative sense. Literally, each organization will be writing its chapter by focusing on how each one has a unique attribute and mission. And figuratively, it would expand on the Latino culture of storytelling and word-of-mouth communication. You will also be able to create and utilize a story map. This initiative is already successfully being used to get community participation as opposed to traditional technical data and reports. It will be able to engage the community by meeting them where they are. You can meet the community in parks or other community events and festivals that you already currently have. And it will provide an opportunity to ensure that everyone's voice is being heard. We would want to explore and build upon the use of Instagrammable moments, video compilations, and activation stations at existing Dalton events. We will be able to utilize the positive impact of social media stations to spotlight the Dalton champions and the reasons why they love Dalton. We would also recommend hosting community tours in which we would invite local realtors to a tour that would highlight the many assets in this community. We would educate the real estate agents on the unique and well-hidden amenities. It also would assist them better communicate all of Dalton's gems to prospective buyers. We would use the tour to cater to educators, to advanced photography students, to military spouses, and to anyone interested in joining us and being a Dalton community champion. Best practices. We would also recommend rediscovering the power of blogging and/or podcasts. This is in direct alignment with storytelling initiatives. It will provide an opportunity to highlight community diversity, the arts, the breweries, and the vibrant downtown businesses. We also would suggest hosting a monthly or bi-monthly session for the area public information officers and marketing personnel to make sure that everyone is on the same page of telling the Dalton story. Once again, who? We would recommend that this list not be limited to, but it would include the Joint Development Authority, the Downtown Dalton Development Authority, the Chamber of Commerce, the hospitals and other healthcare providers, educators and officials from both the city of Dalton and officials from the Whitfield County. And what exactly will we be doing there? So glad you asked. We will be doing goal setting, which is to discuss goals that would encompass the next year, the next 5 years, and up to the next 10 years. We would network. It would provide an opportunity to get to know each other in a slightly informal setting with an outside facilitator. And finally, we would collaborate. We could identify community issues. We could propose creative solutions. We can develop actionable steps. My favorite, we could set deadlines and then create a task force. On this slide, it talks about the proposed budget and timeline. And this can be more research in our detailed report, which will be available online. And we encourage everyone to read all of the pages. But just an overview, the first step would be to start planning the community-wide strategic planning vision session. Also, develop budgets for implementation and also to include ongoing efforts to reevaluate and maintain a cohesive telling of the Dalton story. And finally, I know you're asking, why is this a big deal? Why does storytelling matter? It matters because tourism, including day trippers, bring dollars and economic growth to the city of Dalton. Once again, there is more detailed information included in our written report. And now you will hear from Chris Brown.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Brown, local attorney and part owner of Dalton Brewing Company. I want to first thank everyone from Georgia Forward for putting on this program. It's been a great experience, and hopefully everyone's enjoying the ideas that are coming out. As a member of Young Gamechangers, I want to encourage and challenge everyone in the audience here with us and on the webcast to take these ideas to heart. And if something sounds good to you, to jump in with your time, energy, resources to make it happen. I have the easiest job up here today. I get to talk about tacos, train cars, and a terminal, which is our multi-use parking deck to replace the demolished one. And if there are two things that I think I know about everyone who lives, works, and plays in Dalton, is that They think tacos are delicious, and that we have a lot of excellent taco joints in Dalton. To quote local attorney Chris Brown, tacos are delicious, and Dalton has great tacos. There are around 20 taco restaurants in and around downtown Dalton. That's really where we're focused. And so I'm happy to see members of the DDDA board here to listen to it. We have great restaurants in and around downtown, and Toho's is new. We have Morisco's going in. We have Buck and Burrito, Baja Coop, Tijuana's, Magui's is new, Taqueria El Rojo. If you head up across Morris Street to Block 79, we got Freya's Lounge that came in, D-Food Collab. You head further up and you have some just amazing taco joints that way. Once the new mill line is built, you can head down there to the mill. You have Sol de Mayo. You can head further towards the hospital, and we've got Tacos to Go. There's so much there. And so what we're proposing is actually really simple. We're going to make a taco trail. This is the low-hanging fruit. It doesn't cost much of anything, so I'm sure people sitting here are going to be very happy about that. And it can happen very quickly. So what we're proposing is that it's actually done on your phone. You don't even need a printed passport or anything. Is we design a taco trail that basically markets for a lot of restaurants that can't really market for themselves. And it also at the same time is part restaurant guide and part scavenger hunt. It creates an activity to allow residents and visitors to explore parts of Dalton that normally nobody would be exploring. And so it expands the reach of where our tourists are actually going in downtown Dalton. This is not a new idea. We told this photo of the taco path as the taco trail champion. So other communities are doing this and they're seeing success with it. There are a lot of fun marketing opportunities that the chamber or the DDDA or whatever entity winds up taking it on can really do and play with and pump a lot out on social media to make it happen. As I mentioned, the taco trail could be implemented pretty quickly. It really takes just designing some marketing materials. There's not even printed materials. You can do it all on your phone through an app, or not an app, I'm told. That's too complicated. It actually can just be done with your email address, and the passport will come up on your phone to go along. This could happen in less than 6 months, and it would cost probably less than $6,000. So definitely something to consider. The next thing is the Dalton Train Car. This may be a sore subject for some people. I know that Dalton City has put some money into this previously, and I'm not sure that it even has a floor. But everyone has seen the Dalton Train Car. Probably everyone has taken a photograph in front of the Dalton Train Car, but I don't think anyone knows what to do with the Dalton Train Car. So we're going to propose that you put a little bit more money into it, that we expand the deck of the freight depot and visitors bureau out to the train car, put some cafe tables there, make a gathering space around it. Train enthusiasts will go nuts about it. They'll have a place to sit and take photos. And then partner with a local entrepreneur. There's got to be somebody out there that is going to take on the risk of putting a dining facility inside that car and serving food and beverage. And off the top of my head, maybe they could serve some local beer from a local brewery. I don't know. Just spitballing a little bit. Now this is reimagining the train car is going to take a little bit more money than Taco Trail. We expect in a little bit more time. You probably could get it done within a year after planning, and somewhere in the range of 120 to 270,000. So obviously a bigger investment, but once you get people down there, it's a place to sit. It's a jumping off point for exploring downtown. We think it could really pay dividends. And finally, Mayor Pennington, if you thought that bringing Georgia forward was expensive, then get ready for some sticker shock. Because we're talking about a multi-use parking structure at Bird Park. If there's something that people in Dalton love more than tacos, I think it's parking. And so I think we took a collective sigh when we saw that the old parking deck had to be demolished, and now there's a vacant lot. It's cut the parking in that area in half. So we're proposing to bring that parking back, and then some. So we're gonna build a parking garage, but it's not a typical parking garage. And in fact, if I do this correctly, oh no. Oh, it's fancy. I hope this is the right one. And there's gonna be elevator music in the background. Well, it's fun. So what we're proposing is a multi-use. It's gonna have parking. It's gonna bring back all those parking spots that we lost. But in addition, It's gonna have retail in the bottom. It's gonna have a rain location for events at Bird Park, and it's gonna have a rooftop deck that people can view Bird Park when it's not raining, or just hang out. And it's gonna have this pretty fancy walking bridge over the railway to connect downtown to the revitalized Block 79 and everything that's going on. You see Chelsea's restaurant is there. And people walking along. An ice cream shop, maybe. Maybe not a brewery. But restaurants, various retail could be plugged in there. The city, yes, it's a big price tag. The city will see increased tax revenue from this type of building. And if the city is renting these out, it's going to see rental revenue as well to offset some of the costs. This would be the biggest timeline and the biggest price tag. We expect it would probably take about 2 years from the beginning of planning. It would probably come with a price tag of around 10 to 15 million. So a little ways off and a little bit of convincing to take place, but a pretty cool idea. And shout out to Chelsea for making this awesome demographic happen. There's your budget timeline. Obviously, that's also in the report. I'm going to turn over now.
Isn't that something exciting for me to follow? Hi, everyone. My name is Mallory Safely. I too am a Daltonian and I'm a proud employee of Dalton State College, and I'm excited to present our third big idea today, which is the Peacock Alley Complex. This will be a multi-use sports complex. And the name Peacock Alley, if you're not a Daltonian or don't know the history, comes from our history of when people used to travel down Corridor 41, they would always be surrounded by these beautiful tufted bedspreads made by Catherine Evans Whitener, and they were covered with beautiful peacocks. And so as you traveled through, they called that Peacock Alley. So we're taking that particular name and adding it to this complex idea. So Peacock Alley Complex, again, would be a sports-oriented, multi-use, mixed-use development that would not only be used for sports and tournaments and things like that, but also contain retail and restaurants and apartment or condo living above. We wanted to include a minimum of 8 FIFA certified soccer fields that can be easily converted to be used for other sports tournaments and events like lacrosse, cricket. These are growing sports in our area as well. The rendering on the right is another complex, multi-use complex that's in another state, put on by Perfect Game. And the area in which we are suggesting to place Peacock Alley Complex is the North Georgia Fairgrounds. It is centrally located here in Dalton, close to many, many things. It is a very large and flat piece of land, which, as you know, is very hard to find in Dalton, and it is currently very underused. Our rough rendering would look something like this. We would have the 8 FIFA-sized fields on the right-hand side with some parking. We would have the retail, restaurants, things like that in the middle with apartment or condo living above. And then the rest would be, again, additional parking. Down at the bottom, you'll see who currently owns those 3 sections of land and how they're zoned. And then thank you to Nathan Kirkman for this rough rendering of an aerial view of the area. And the reason we want to show you this is because by using this particular location, we are able to connect Peacock Alley Complex with already existing things in our community by putting in pedestrian greenway connectors, such as the mill line. And that way you're using the circled area here on the picture is where the North Georgia Fairgrounds are.
We would be able to put in pedestrian walkways that would connect us to the rec center, on up to Heritage Point, over to Mount Rachel, down to Crown Mill District, up to Higg Mill, down to downtown. This is the way we can connect the whole community through this particular complex. We are known as Soccer Town USA, and one of the big things for us to get behind that momentum is to have something that contains the minimum 8 fields. One issue that we have with bringing in big tournaments from across the state and nation to drive tourism and revenue in our community is the fact that we don't have a big enough set of fields in one location. We have lots of fields, they're all over the place, right? But they want to bring in tournaments for a place that is centrally located with enough fields to handle this size of a tournament. So that's why we want to create the Peacock Alley Complex. On the screen, you'll see our phases and our budget. Phase 1 would be to either purchase or lease the North Georgia Fairgrounds land. And again, that would hopefully help in creating another TAD district. Phase 2 would be to repurpose the current buildings and the fields that are there and build up the new retail and parking and fields. That estimated cost is around 10 to 12 million. And then phase 3 would be to bring in those businesses, bring in those retail, name brand things that are bringing more tourism, more residents and things like that. And we're estimating that cost to be around 5 to 7 million. And I want to thank you on behalf of Team Destination Dalton for letting us present today.
Well, we promised you big ideas, didn't we? And certainly this final group has delivered on that. So what questions do we have for Team Destination Dalton? You guys are just blown away by the ideas. Yes, sir.
In your design of the multi-use place out at the fairgrounds, is there consideration to what already goes on at the fairgrounds, how it might be accommodated in that mix?
Okay, the question is, what happens to what already happens at the fairgrounds if Peacock Alley comes into existence?
Yes. Yes, we did. We did consider that, and we understand that there are certain things that go on there at that particular location, but it is very underutilized. And so again, it's very hard to find flat, centrally located land in the city of Dalton. So this was just our suggestion. It is not our place to call on behalf of the city. We did not call them, no.
Oh, that's a great next step. Should the city decide that they want to pursue this idea a little bit further.
That, yeah.
And to my recollection, you guys did have an alternative location suggestion should this parcel not.
We do, and it is in our final report. We had another suggestion, but it would have to be rezoned for this particular complex. It's not zoned properly right now. But it's in the report, so you can go read that report that we worked really hard on.
Which you can find on the City of Dalton website or forward.org. What else?
Did either side have, as far as, I saw you said business and things of that nature, hotel access, most of our hotel access is out on the 75 corridor, of course, getting into those locations would be a little bit more difficult. If you looked at the areas, either that location at Fairground or the
secondary, it's all close to the bypass, which we thought was an easy way to get in back.
And that question was about hotel accommodations to be able to support the activities that would happen at that complex.
There are other team members that can answer other questions or other team.
Well, thank you so much, Destination Dalton. Thank you to all of our game changers. I know that in this presentation, there's a lot of content. There's lots of rich, fertile ground here for the community to explore and to water, and hopefully see some of these ideas come to fruition. So Just as a reminder, you can see the recommendations in full in hundreds of pages, not hundreds, but lots of pages on georgiaforward.org or the City of Dalton website. And I would like to welcome the Executive Director of GMA up to the stand, Mr. Larry Hanson.
Well, thank you. It's certainly a privilege and a pleasure to be here today. And that's been a very informative and inspiring presentation. So I want to recognize the local community leaders. I know we had Mayor Pennington here earlier, and Andrew, and certainly your chamber leaders and the Lead Greater Dalton leaders, Allison, and also want to recognize Senator Chuck Payne, who's here with us today. So thank you for doing this as well. Well, I represent the Georgia Municipal Association, and we work for and with all the cities of Georgia. We're very proud that all choose voluntarily to be members. So I want to ask you, just to see anyone in the room, anyone want to guess how many cities there are in Georgia? Staff is excluded. I'll keep the hand down. Well, there are actually 537 cities in Georgia, and there are 159 counties. And so that's your competition. And it's important that you do the things you've done today, and that is come together, bring bright and energetic leaders together, and think about your future and how you achieve the kind of community that will make you even more successful than you've been in the past. And I certainly want to thank the Young Game Changers group. It is just amazing when you gather people from outside your community and they come in with a fresh set of eyes and unbiased and not blinded by the things of the past, but the things we ride by every day and see, or more importantly, don't see. And it's just great to see the kind of vision that you all have brought, and the energy and the enthusiasm in these plans to present today and give great ideas. Yesterday, I had the privilege to be with Governor Kemp at Kia in West Point, where it was announced that Georgia, for the 9th consecutive year, had been selected as the best state for business. And that's something to be thankful for. But also we have, yes, absolutely. And obviously, it's the cities and counties in Georgia that are providing the kind of quality of life, the experiences, the jobs, the housing, the workforce that allows our state to actually be the best state in which to conduct and do business. But yet we know we have challenges in all of those areas. And I really appreciate the fact that this work has undertaken some of the key things of the day that we're experiencing, economic development and creating an environment for even more job creation, quality of life, workforce development, transportation, education, housing, diversity, equity, and unity, tourism. Because what we're finding today is it's not enough to have a good infrastructure and a good foundation. You've got to create a sense of place. Placemaking is really what it's all about today with the generations that we're trying to recruit. You've got to have a good quality of life. You've got to have cool spaces, a vibrant downtown, trails, things that not just connect your city, but connect people. And so really these plans are really inspiring and I think put you on the right path. And what's interesting, I do a lot of research. In fact, I wrote an editorial today before I left for a magazine where we talked about you've got 4 generations in the workforce. And all the research shows that the things that baby boomers and Gen X and millennials and Gen Zs want are not the same. And we've really got to work hard to make sure we're providing the kind of needs, the kind of issues in our workforce, but also in the quality of life in our communities to both attract and retain this generation and generations in the future. We have to make sure when our young people leave, whether it's to go away to college or military service or wherever it may be, that they want to return. They want to invest in that community. So we have to have the kinds of things that makes a business want to invest and people want to invest and also to raise a family. So I commend you for being thoughtful. And also one of the things that I learned over my career, and as Andrew knows, I was a city manager for 22 years prior to coming to GMA 5 years ago. And it's difficult to sometimes look at the challenges that you face, but we can never get better and reach our full potential if we're not willing to not only look at our successes and the things we do well, but look at the opportunities that we have for improvement. And some of those, they jump out at us at times, but yet that is how we get better. That's how we become great. There's a book always found very informative to me by an author named Jim Collins called Good to Great. And that's really what you're really talking about. What is necessary, and what kind of investment is needed, what kind of capacity building is needed, people building to go from being good to great. So I want to tell you how proud we are at GMA to be a part of this program. AJ, thank you for your willingness to be here. AJ is chairman of our board and has really been the chairman of this board since the Georgia Forward program was created. And the Young Gamechangers program is certainly part of that. And we're going to be doing more things in the community. We want to be a convener as a Georgia Forward to bring people together to talk about the issues of the day in a non-political, unbiased way so that we can, of course, as a society and as citizens of Georgia, help plan for a bright and prosperous future. You're going to be hearing more about that in the coming days, weeks, and months as we look to convene. And we always, Cities United is our theme at GMA, where we bring together the 537 cities of Georgia, and we try and have a unified voice so that we can be effective at the state capitol and in other places. So we do a lot of work with cities. We provide a lot of programs and benefits to them. We also have a team of lobbyists where we work on behalf of good legislation and try and manage challenging legislation. And we know that even in this upcoming session, there's going to be a lot of discussion about housing. And so I was glad to see you have components about housing in here. We're going to have to think differently in order to meet the housing needs of the future, because they are directly related to meeting the workforce needs of the future. So on behalf of one other comment I had, I could not help but think, Taco Trail. That was pretty cool. I like that. It made me get a little hungry, but then it also made me think that it should be complemented by Beer Boulevard. I mean, don't you think? Beer Boulevard, Taco Trail, because those tacos will certainly make you thirsty. But again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for your community interest and your community leaders and you listening today. And certainly thank you to Young Gamechangers for giving your time and talent and energy and enthusiasm to help develop such a great plan. So hope you enjoy the rest of the festivities. It's again a pleasure to be here with you.
We invite those of you here today to mix and mingle with us for a little bit. Our Gamechangers will remain on site for some time. If you have any questions that have come to mind since they were on the stage, thank you again for your time. Thank you for your support. And we can't wait to see what Dalton implements soon. Thank you so much.